you missed it. The chance to buy Kaspa, ICP, Jasmy, Bitcoin, and many other of your favorite altcoins for the cheapest prices that you're probably going to see over the next 6 to 8 months. BlackRock just bought 3,300 Bitcoin, and multiple signals are flashing for upside right now. So in this video, we're going to look at all the signals that are flashing right now that indicate this up-only season is just beginning, and we're going to look at your favorite altcoins and the price predictions for the likes of Kaspa, ICP, Jasmy into the future. So hit that like button and let's get into today's video. Now, as I've just talked about, BlackRock buys 3,320 Bitcoin. BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager with a big old Bitcoin ETF under its name. So what's just happened? Well, as we look across this rather noisy looking chart, you'll see that I'm going to refer here to this particular pattern. This is a reaccumulation schematic from Wyckoff, and it's effectively a shakeout phase that is used and manipulated into the market by big money to be able to buy at discounted prices. Hence the fact we've just seen BlackRock buying aggressively over the last few days. And we look into it on the daily, you'll see that everything pretty much aligns absolutely perfectly. All the way down to this creek pattern, the break below the actual creek pattern into what is called the spring. This spring was then when we saw BlackRock loading up very aggressively, as well as other whales were starting to buy in this area. And now we can see, after the mass panic set in on Thursday, Friday last week, this spring occurring. You can see these wicks down towards the downside, indicating buying pressure stepping up, green candle starting to step in. What we're looking for is another green day tomorrow to break back above the sort of 58K level. And then we anticipate that this scary period of time is probably more than likely over. Invalidation for this would be if we break towards new lows and see continuation. But it's pretty evident that BlackRock is stepping in and others will continue to step in and buy in this area, which means eventually we're going to push higher. Now let's see where this actually will go, okay? Because this is following on from the diagram that's been playing out perfectly so far. Now obviously there's a time frame, and the actual time frame is not so guaranteed, not so set in stone. But what we could anticipate is over the coming week or so, a move up towards sort of $63,000 or so. Now, people are talking about the catalyst. What can happen in this to drive it? Whatever. You don't always need catalyst, okay? This is a manipulated market. Big money is manipulating the game in order to shake out weak hands all the time and pick up cheap cryptocurrency. But if you were to say that there was a catalyst coming this week, you would say probably CPI or core inflation data would be pretty bullish if inflation is looking lower, because it indicates that there is a chance that maybe the Fed might come out, might be a little bit more dovish towards interest rate hikes. However, after kind of the initial excitement that we're in a recovery phase, we'll see maybe a bounce down to retest these levels here, pretty much around current levels at $57,600. From that retest phase, we should see an up phase, fairly aggressive, strong phase that should bring us back into the high 60Ks. Maybe a bit of a cool off in that zone, eventually a bit of a move around previous all-time highs, and then following this, further continuation up to around 84K. Now, where does this all go? How long does this take? I really don't think that we're going to be back around these levels until September time. But that is more than fine by me, because it gives us more kind of time here to continue to accumulate altcoins if we have the ability to do so. Now, other things that have me extremely bullish: CoinGlass heat map, okay? The heat map over on CoinGlass, liquidations down below, we can barely see that there is anything left, to be honest, okay? There's not a huge amount of liquidity that sits down at these levels. Around 50K, there is a little bit there. So if we were to spike back down, that's probably where we would anticipate a bounce. But really, there's not a lot of liquidity down here, okay? There's not a lot of open interest anymore, which means that people aren't really betting on the market. Bears aren't interested. Bulls aren't interested. This is a very key time where we'll start to see more money entering the market again. Market makers have to go back to work and start pushing markets in various directions. There is a huge amounts of liquidity that sits around $72,600 in the value of around $6.4 billion. So if you wait for Bitcoin to get into that level, when Bitcoin hits that, is more than likely going to explode towards the upside, particularly after this spring event. The recent shakeout that comes in just below this area, okay? This is very indicative of market manipulation and likely reversal towards the upside. Once we return to this area, the breakout will be extremely quick. This basically was the confirmation of that happening. And this, you can see, is a diagram showing market manipulation in process. Effectively, it says basically when you have a range and then the price dips aggressively down and then returns to back into the range very quickly, that ultimately you're going to move towards the other direction. You can see this range here, dips all the way down, returns into the range, dips down again, and then eventually it rallies up in the other direction. Now, something else we need to refer to is that the fact, if we zoom out, everything is very much to play for, okay? This shows us where halving events have taken place historically, and after halving events, you basically have a few hundred days to the top of the market. And now we're looking at 483 days from the halving event to the top, or where we start to hit the first kind of top of the bull market, okay? And that takes us to around the 11th of August next year, and basically is around $127,000. So considering that the market is looking pretty low, and that's because on average after halving, it usually takes 553 days to hit the top of the all-time high. Bearing in mind, we've already had our halving. It's looking pretty strong right now for that to play out. So how has this affected the altcoins? Well, a few altcoins out there have been outperforming the market massively. First of all, you've got TON. You've also got Kaspa. We've also seen Ondo and various others performing strongly. But just comparing TON and Kaspa to start with, I want to have a little think about this, because both TON and Kaspa are layer 1 blockchains that have been outperforming the market for probably two different reasons. TON's been outperforming the market massively because it's the native blockchain of Telegram. Various games like Hamster Combat have been onboarding hundreds of millions of people into the TON ecosystem right now, and the volume, as you can see over on DeFiLlama.com, is going absolutely bonkers, which is why the TVL, or total value locked, on TON is also going absolutely crazy, and that's having a knock-on effect to the overall price of TON. And as we see into the chart on TON, we are basically being bought up at these recent lows. And while Bitcoin and everything's been going sideways, TON has actually been in sort of an upward trajectory. Bitcoin started to kind of come down after the 11th of March. And since the 11th of March, TON has basically put in highs around 133%, 109% up, showing that there is likely to be continued upside for TON during this period of time. But I want to compare TON with Kaspa. Now, Kaspa hasn't necessarily been seeing that same kind of volume flooding into Kaspa, hasn't seen a bunch of partnerships or anything like that. But in the same time, since the 11th of March, it's actually up 16 or 17%. And you're like, oh, that's not a lot. That is a lot, considering that most altcoins have been down 60, 70%. This shows us something very important. We can only speculate, perhaps, on what it is that's going to drive a particular cryptocurrency to perform really strongly. Why? Because you've got TON that's performing really strongly from a fundamental point of view. It's onboarding hundreds of millions of users. The volumes are insane. The narrative's great, blah, blah, blah. But on the other side, you've got Kaspa, also sort of strong narrative. You know, that if Bitcoin's the digital gold, then Kaspa's the digital silver. And this is far more like story-driven, perhaps, than TON. And yet both are having similarly strong performances. This means that right now, we can only speculate on how certain coins will perform into the future based on certain fundamentals, because there's not necessarily a blueprint for one coin performing better than another. So in terms of price predictions from TON, in the last bull market, we're looking at crypto market cap of around $2 trillion. I think this bull market is going to see around an $8 trillion market cap for crypto, which means that whilst TON is currently valued at $18.2 billion, which is pretty big, there is an upside potential to move towards the $100 to $200 billion market cap for TON, I think, given where this ecosystem's headed right now, which would see a 5 to 10x for TON, which is pretty damn good, considering the downside risk doesn't seem to be that bad. But personally, I think there's better options in the market. Bearing in mind, we were first talking about TON back in this level around the 2nd of May, and since then we've seen significant upside. Now, Kaspa, significantly smaller market cap than TON, currently sits around $4.1 billion. And at the moment, Kaspa is mainly being driven by speculation. If more partnerships start to happen, if more developers start to use Kaspa to develop projects, if we start to see more mainstream adoption and volume going through Kaspa, then again, we have significant potential upside from current levels with potentially minimal downside risk, given the fact that this coin's outperforming the market. So from a $4 billion market cap, again, we could perhaps be looking towards $20 to $40 billion, which again would give a 5 to 10x, maybe even bigger if something crazy happens and we see mass adoption coming in for Kaspa. But remember, it's a competitive space, and there aren't really VCs invested in Kaspa, which while some see as a very bullish thing, VCs ultimately do tend to be the ones that inject huge capital to see those significant pumps in price to bring in retailers. And without VC backing in Kaspa, etc., maybe there won't be that kind of explosive phase that many are hoping for because of the big injection needed from the VCs who are trying to eventually pump up their own bags. But let's see, maybe we can go significantly higher. Now, many coins have seen significant pullbacks like AIOZ here, but why I think coins like this are worth paying attention to is due to how they performed during this period of time here, where they saw significant growth phases, significant outperformance of the market. And if we come across to my Twitter page, which is linked down below, so make sure you go and give us a follow over there, because I share a lot of this information on Twitter before I start to share it on YouTube. The other day I was talking about the current crypto market, saying that we were literally here, and we did have that final shakeout that followed me talking about this chart here. Now you can see basically strong growth phase is pretty much coming. However, many coins that had very, very strong hope phases, I think are worth paying attention to right now, clearly because they've been selected by the VCs to try and pump these coins here. And after shakeouts, the VCs will step back in and pump those same coins. So who follows this pattern very nicely? AIOZ, you can see, had a very, very strong hope phase. And then it runs into this, okay, which is pretty much the shakeout phase. And while, yeah, and it has had a pretty strong pullback, around 60%, pretty healthy considering how aggressively it went up. It's also following this extremely bullish kind of like flag pattern or falling wedge, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so AIOZ obviously going to benefit from the deep in catalyst, the AI catalyst that will start to emerge again, the narratives that get running. And I recommend going and learning more about projects such as AIOZ. There's obviously others. But what we're really simply looking at, okay, is coins that follow this hope, shakeout, move. AIOZ, you can see, definitely follows this. Jasmy, again, is an interesting one because actually, while kind of the overall market wasn't performing very strongly, Jasmy continued to rally higher into June, mainly because of various bullish news about Jasmy. But since then, we've had a very healthy pullback into kind of this buy zone area here. And it's good to see, again, Jasmy reacting nicely after the initial shakeout phase and into the next market run. Jasmy, again, looking pretty strong from this current level. I'd avoid kind of aping into Jasmy once we get into these highs. Ultimately, right now, you can see it was good value in here because of our recent pump, showing that from this area, big money likes to accumulate Jasmy. Now, I know there's a lot of coins that from the previous bull market have still gathered lots of excitement and attention. We've seen XRP, we've seen Quant, HBAR, etc. However, due to a fairly kind of weak phase, when we were sort of in that kind of hope phase, the overall altcoin market, we haven't seen significant amounts of growth in HBAR. So I would like to see HBAR seeing a bit more kind of excitement. So perhaps HBAR isn't going to see that exciting growth going forward that maybe some anticipate. Particularly when you compare it with coins like Arweave that came out of a bear market, went through its accumulation phase, suddenly woke up into the hope phase, has now had its kind of shakeout phase, and you would anticipate that from this current price, Arweave looks pretty solid, decent deep in project, again, tons of action going on chain, and you'll likely see far more growth. Now, I could go on and show you pretty much all the altcoins that you've been talking about over the last few kind of months and so on. Render, you can see had a very good run, then got shaken out, then we're going to probably move into the next phase after the initial hope phase shakeout. Delysium, another one we've talked about on the channel. There's a list goes on and on and on for coins that have been around for a little bit longer, okay, and that were around during that hope and excitement phase. So what I'm talking about is coins that were older than probably a year old, coins that kind of emerged maybe in the summer of last year or whatever, who've actually already experienced a hope run, this hopeful excitement run, and then been into that shakeout of forming a very similar pattern to this, forming lows, and then eventually would anticipate a move like this. So to be honest, many of the coins that you are holding right now, if you haven't managed to fumble your bags and panic sell, good for you so far, okay? Ultimately, what I've been trying to do right now is to reaccumulate as much as possible in these zones down here to bring down the average prices paid so that when we see a recovery in the market, I'm going to hit profit levels much quicker than perhaps if I just waited to return to some of the levels I bought at in some of the coins that I bought that were down. And ultimately, a lot of the old coins that you've been buying, if they are from the last bull market, okay, the likes of Solana, whatever, that have had strong hope phases and are now running into shakeout phases, this is very much normal. You should be happy to see good shakeout phases and good opportunities to buy and lower. Like Nosana here, you can see pretty much completely dead all the way till the 10th of November. Suddenly it wakes up and does an absolute like 220x or something. Has a good healthy pullback. And this hope phase gives me very good faith in coins like Nosana that they will have very strong next phases. Okay, so look for strong hope phases. Look for strong pullbacks, and then you're good to go on pretty much all of them. If, however, you've got coins that were launching into this period of time, chances are their charts are saying that they're just down like that. They are not dead coins by any means. If they've still got strong teams, strong fundamentals, and driving forward, things are still looking good. Later in the week, I'm going to start to look into decent narratives where I see key growth shaping up. But right now, I think the key to pay attention to is what is going on in Bitcoin. If Bitcoin has another green day after today, regathers 58,300 and sees a breakthrough and a retest like this, then Bitcoin is going to be off to the races. I think we're going to see a steady kind of growth accumulation that's going to run into sort of September, maybe even October time before we're breaking these highs. Somewhere around then, we're going to see the US cutting interest rates. You're going to see election cycles going crazy. People talking about crypto, because I think crypto could be the talk of the town through this US election, and we have everything we need. So if you missed this bottom, in my opinion, this is the bottom, and we're ready to see significantly higher prices for pretty much all altcoins across the board. Don't be panicked. Don't be scared from people telling you that this coin's dead or that coin's dead. Go and do your research and understand what is going on. Now, if you're wondering where you could go and buy or sell your cryptocurrency, personally, I use Bitunix because it doesn't require KYC and it doesn't use a VPN. They also list all the coins that we've talked about in this video today and coins that I'm asking them to list all the time. So if you want coins listed on Bitunix, where you can go and trade them without needing a KYC or a VPN, literally leave the name of the coin down below and I will go and ask the team and see if we can get them listed ASAP. So if you want like the dog cat coin or whatever that's got like $3 worth of volume on Dex Screener listed, you're probably going to struggle. Then if you want more mainstream coins, etc. listed on Bitunix, then don't hesitate. They'll be able to list them within 24 hours. Hit the like button, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's get ready for this bull market finally. Bye-bye.